Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, for this episode here, I'm going to give you guys my preliminary thoughts as far as what actually happened in the game last night between the Atlanta Falcons and between the Detroit Lions. First and foremost, let's talk about players that really stood out. With the exception of one, and that's going to be the one that we're going to talk about in stark contrast to the other player. But I just wanted to get my preliminary thoughts on, all the other players that I thought played really well. First and foremost, I thought that Tyleik Williams and I thought that Tate Ratledge, I thought for their first NFL action, even though it was preseason, I thought they played really well. I thought they played good assignment football. Tate Ratledge was absolutely mauling people, moving people, did a really great job, and his first action at right guard already looks like that he's going to be a successful, really good player for the Detroit Lions, is really going to be a good anchor for them on that offensive line, especially when he's surrounded by the other starting offensive talent that's there, whether, it's with Glasgow, Sewell, the whole 9 yards, and obviously with Mahogany and Decker on the left-hand side as well. I thought Williams did a really good job, especially, as we all saw with the defense. I thought the defense overall had a really good night because the defense played really sound, was able to, stop and shut down a lot of the offensive attack from the Atlanta Falcons for most of the game. And they were able to do a really good job in stopping the run. Not as, good in the passing ability of stopping, but, overall, I thought that Tyleik Williams as an individual on that defense overall was a really good piece. I thought he showed up in terms of being able to impact the run defense, stopping rushers, and really doing a good job in that regard. And then other players on that defense that I noticed that did really well, I thought Hazanin did really well. Again, continued to show a lot of energy, a lot of toughness, a lot of physicality, and, being able to get after players. Saw a lot more pass rush out of him in this game. Didn't result in him getting a sack. He nearly got one. But still, I thought Hazanin did a really good job in regards to that. Obviously, Nate Lynn and Muhammad, they both got sacks. They really did a good job as far as that was concerned. They did really well. I thought that Grant Stewart did a really good job. I also thought that Rock Ya-Sin again showed up. Made tackles, almost came away with tipping the ball that might have caused an interception. So those were guys that I thought did a really good job on the offensive side, on the defensive side of the ball as far as individual performances. On the offensive side, other players that I thought, that deserve recognition, to deserve a shout out as far as how they performed. I thought that even though Meeks had a drop pass early in the game, I thought that he was able to respond. I thought that, the big play that he got later on in the game, and then obviously the touchdown, those were really good, things on his part. I thought Isaac Tesla, he again did a really good job, not only in, getting his touchdown catch, his first one in the NFL, along with Meeks, but again, I thought that he did a good job out on the perimeter, helping spring blocks, whether it was in terms of other catches or in terms of the running component. So I thought that those players, I thought that they really showed up in a good way. Now, certain players that I thought, continued to struggle, continued to have problems. One of them was definitely Broderick Martin. Martin had a penalty. I really didn't see a whole lot out of him, just based off of what I saw from the game. Really can't say too much about Manu, but again, I wasn't able to see a whole lot out of him, but I know this much, that for the early portion of the game, we were really having a hard time running the ball, which I I don't know if I can attribute that directly or, completely on Manu, but there was definitely a problem as far as the running component. I also know that, early on there was a lot of problems with pass protection, especially from the edges, which obviously Manu being the starting left tackle for that game, that definitely does correlate to him. So I thought those were some guys that really didn't show up very well. Boodle, I thought also, again, did not have a really good game as far as coverage, which is a second really bad game in regards to that. And then some other things that I thought that were not particularly good as far as overall things was I was not particularly enthralled with the fact that, the first 3 or 4 times that we saw our special teams out there were penalties. There were a lot of penalties on special teams. There were a lot of penalties overall that I thought were mindless, needless penalties that the Lions should have definitely not had. They definitely need to clean that up. And then there is the fact that there were the turnovers that there was, which directly correlates and leads into the main body of the conversation that we're going to have with this episode, which is Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. I'm going to tell you this right now. I've never been a big fan of Hendon Hooker. I've always had this viewpoint, and anybody that's watched me, anybody that's been a part of my show and, listened to me for a long time on this, knows why I have not been a big fan of Hendon Hooker. I thought coming out of college that he was coming into the NFL way too late because, as I showed back then, and I've continued to state it now, when you've ever had a quarterback that has been drafted when they've been 25 years or older, they've never been very good. They've struggled, and they don't seem to adapt very well to the NFL because they're so used to what they did in college. They're so far behind the curve that they can't pick up the intricacies, they can't pick up the intangibles that are necessary for the NFL game. And, Hendon Hooker has had at least 2 years where he could work on his intangibles, he could work on his footwork, work on his ball placement, work on his accuracy, his ability to read defenses, his ability to process information, and it just has not gotten better. And I know some people that have continued to hold out hope for him have said, oh, you know what, well, the Lions really haven't fully given him a chance. They haven't really given him an opportunity to play with the top backups to really get a true opportunity to showcase what he can do. Last night, that was not the case. Hendon Hooker got the start. He, played with the starters, which were the number 2 options, which are the best options that we have behind our starters. And Hendon Hooker was downright, horrible for most of the game. And it reflected itself in his stats. It reflected it in his performance. And it reflected in the fact that, he almost got some guys hurt. Because let's go back to, with Hendon Hooker, the first thing that stands out to me about Hendon Hooker is the fact that, ball security. One of the biggest things that a quarterback absolutely must, above all else, do when they're playing the position, when they're in a game, is they have to be smart with the football. They have to secure it. They have to make sure they do not turn it over, either in terms of fumbles or in terms of interceptions. And you know what? You could say what you want about the first game where that one interception was, not on him. It was because the receiver didn't squeeze the ball and the interception was because of that. But what happened in the game last night with Hendon Hooker, that was directly on him because of the fact that they were both fumbles. He was careless with the football, and it cost the Lions 2 turnovers, which resulted in them giving the ball away. And the only reason that it didn't wind up costing the Lions more than what it potentially did is because, like I said earlier, the defense did an absolutely great job against the Falcons' offense, forced a number of short drives, or they were able to get stops before it could cause damage, and on top of that, the Falcons missed a field goal. So for me, it's like, Hendon Hooker's mistakes, his blunders, did not help out the Lions, and they surely, absolutely did not help out his cause or his case for trying to become the number 2 quarterback this year. And the other thing that I saw was, again, I talked about this in a previous episode with a report that had come out of practice where because of his inability to throw a ball when he saw somebody open, it was a hospital pass in essence to, tight end Sam Laporta in the back of the end zone, and Grant Stewart absolutely, laid a lick on freaking, Sam Laporta in the end zone. And I actually got a little bit of guff about that because somebody, specifically, there was a comment that was put out that said, oh, well, I'm damaging his livelihood and, I'm setting a bad precedent and, I'm setting up a horrible reputation for him. But it's like, you go back to that game. That is exactly what he did almost to Craig Reynolds. That throw that he gave to Craig Reynolds, that was a ball that he put way too much air on. Now, granted, it was accurate, but the problem was because he put so much air on it and he was late on the throw, late on the read, Craig Reynolds got absolutely rocked. Absolutely was put in a position where he was completely defenseless, had no ability to protect himself, and that Falcons defender absolutely laid him the ever-living, hell out. Not good. So not only was Hendon Hooker bad from the perspective of, the 2 turnovers that were a direct correlation to him not securing the ball, and you can say what you want about the offensive line not protecting him. It's like, listen, even if that's the case, you have to protect the football. You cannot get loosey-goosey with it. You cannot be unprotected with that ball. When you're trying to make a play, you're scrambling around, you're running around, you're trying to do something, or when you're in the pocket. You have to secure the football. And you know what? People can say, oh, well, Jared Goff has had fumbles doing that. Well, number one, typically when that happens with Goff, he's in the process of throwing the ball and then gets hit. And now the way the rules are, that typically results in a fumble. So not the same there. But also, number two, let's also call it for what it is. Jared Goff is smart enough to realize that, hey, you know what? There's nothing going to happen here. It's better just to take a sack, live to fight another down, move on to the next down, move on to the next play. That's not what Hendon Hooker was doing. Hendon Hooker was trying to overcompensate. He was trying to do too much, and it caused him to have some really bad effects and decisions and results from him not playing well. And the point of the matter is that, again, like I said just a few moments ago, it looks like Hendon Hooker has not been progressing. He's been not picking up what Jared Goff has been doing. He's been not listening to what Mark Brunell is obviously calling, for in practice, trying to teach him. The progress is not there. The ability to understand defenses, the ability to maintain and, run the offense with efficiency, it's not there. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If there was ever a bigger indicator, if there was ever a bigger statement as to where Hendon Hooker is, it was what happened last night when with 5 minutes and 5.5 minutes left in the first half, the Lions pulled him. They said, no, you're done. And the reason why that is a big red flag for Hendon Hooker is because go back to what Dan Campbell said earlier in the week. He said, Hendon Hooker's going to play the entire first half, and then Kyle Allen's going to play the entire second half. That did not happen. Hendon Hooker was pulled with 5.5 minutes left in the first half. This goes back to the exact same conversations that have been brought up about the Lions not having confidence in him, about the Lions not trusting him. Go back to the Hall of Fame game. Rather than Hendon Hooker getting the start, it was Kyle Allen who got the nod. Go back to the playoff game against the Washington Commanders last year. Instead of Hendon Hooker coming in, it was Teddy Bridgewater. When Teddy Bridgewater came in and played for the Detroit Lions as the primary, guy that they were trying to see if he could, become the number 2 guy, it wasn't even a contest. Pretty much whenever Teddy Bridgewater was in camp for the Lions, he was automatically named the number 2 quarterback. It wasn't a competition. And again, when you take a look now at this competition that's going on between Kyle Allen and Hendon Hooker, it goes back to exactly what I said in regards to the fact that Hendon Hooker has never been able to really beat out a good quality backup quarterback. The only guy that he has ever beaten to win the job was Nate Sudfeld. And every Lions fan, I don't care how big of a fan you are of Hendon Hooker, they're going to instantly be able to tell you, Nate Sudfeld and Kyle Allen, they're not even in the same galaxy. Nate Sudfeld is barely a level 3 quarterback as far as a third stringer. Kyle Allen is an established veteran. He knows what to do within an offense, and that's exactly what we saw last night. You put in Kyle Allen with 5.5 minutes left in the first half, and after multiple drives where the Lions could not get anything going, and the best drive that you have with Hendon Hooker in that lineup, you get down into the red zone, you fumble the ball away, and then as soon as that happens, the very next drive, if I recall correctly, Kyle Allen comes in and, hey, you know what? Not only do the Lions get a huge spark because Kyle Allen just absolutely uncorks a moon ball, a rainbow ball to Meeks, who I think it was a 68-yard gain on the play, which was an absolutely beautiful throw by, Kyle Allen. Maintain calm, poise, composure in the pocket, put the ball out there for Meeks to get underneath it. And I'm going to say this right now. Meeks did an absolutely phenomenal job with that catch because, number one, the freaking back judge was in the way, almost impacted the play, but Meeks held, his concentration, focused on the ball, was not worried about anybody else around him, wasn't worried about hearing footsteps, absolutely secured a great ball and a great throw from Kyle Allen. And then you take a look at the rest of the night. Until, obviously, the unfortunate thing happened, which I've already talked about. Not going to, go back into it with this episode, but you take a look at what Kyle Allen did the rest of the night. The only mistake that Kyle Allen had was that, he fumbled the ball, but he was able to fall on top of it and retain possession for the Lions rather than it being another turnover. And that in of itself is a difference factor between how Hen Hooker played versus how Kyle Allen played. When Kyle Allen made a mistake, he redeemed himself. When Hendon Hooker made a mistake, he did not. Because take a look at the final statistics, if you will, between Kyle Allen and Hendon Hooker. Kyle Allen finished the night 7 of 8, and I think it was like 120-plus passing yards, 15 an average a throw, 2 passing touchdowns, and a perfect passer rating, 158.3. Yeah, it's preseason. Yeah, you're against backups. But that's what you want to see out of a veteran quarterback. That's what you want to see out of a guy who is trying to secure the number 2 job. And that right there points very highly to Kyle Allen because he's been a number 2 quarterback with a number of teams. He was the backup quarterback with the Steelers. He was the backup quarterback with the Bills. This is a guy that has proven over the years that, hey, you know what? Even if things don't go his way, he can respond and he can come out and make things happen. And the fact that Kyle Allen led 2 very successful drives in which, hey, you know what? They're able to push the ball. They're able to continue to pick up first downs. And then they got 2 great touchdown throws from him. One to Meeks, the other to Isaac Tesla, which both of those were their first touchdown grabs in the NFL, even though it's not going to reflect anything in their official stats because it's the NFL preseason. But that's the difference. Because as I said with, Kyle Allen's statistics, you take a look at Hendon Hooker's. The only thing about Hendon Hooker's statistics that actually looked good was the completion percentage. He completed 7 out of 10 throws, so that's 70%. That's really good. But the problem is take a look at the yards and the average. He had less than 40 yards of actual throwing yards. I think he had 38. His freaking, average per catch was or average per throw was like 3 point something. No touchdowns, no interceptions, thankfully, but his passer rating was only like a 76. Think about that. Kyle Allen's passer rating was double in total value compared to Hendon Hooker's, and on top of that, Kyle Allen had 2 touchdown throws versus Hendon Hooker's 0, and Hendon Hooker had 2 more turnovers on top of the fact of what he had last week. Kyle Allen was poised, he was composed, ran the offense with total command, made sure that the offense did exactly what it did. It was efficient, and it was ultimately the reason why the Lions won that game. The defense did its job, made sure to hold the Falcons' offense in check, but the Lions' offense, finding some rhythm, maintaining itself, and getting those touchdowns, that's what ultimately allowed them to win the game last night. And that is a total credit to Kyle Allen coming in and saying, hey, you know what? This is my opportunity to show what I can do because, Hendon Hooker's made a mess of things, and I'm sure Kyle Allen wasn't thinking that part, but Hendon Hooker's made a mess. I have to come in. I have to try and salvage this. I have to play within myself. I have to do what I can, and by doing that, he absolutely salvaged the situation, and the Lions got the win out of it. So, I'm going to say this right now. The job is Kyle Allen's to lose right now. I'm going to be honest with you. At this point, Kyle Allen is well ahead of Hendon Hooker in the number 2 battle, especially after what we saw last night. And then on top of that, it's like I said in my video yesterday before I did the live stream for the game. Because of what happened, there's now going to be some very, very uncomfortable conversations around the Hendon Hooker narrative and around the Hendon Hooker camp, because it's like, listen, you now have to seriously start having this conversation. Is he ever going to get it? Is there even a future for him here with the Detroit Lions? Because it's like, listen, the roster is now so stacked and so competitive around the place of every single position, you have to ask yourself and wonder if the Lions are going to keep 3 quarterbacks. And if it does come down to that, if they're going to keep 2 or if they're going to keep 3, well, I'm going to tell you this right now, based off of last night's game, there's no way they're keeping Hendon Hooker. If it comes down to, okay, who do we keep, Kyle Allen or Hendon Hooker? I'm going to be honest with you. There is a now real possibility that Hendon Hooker, he could get the, the broom. He could get cut. Because I don't think the Lions are confident. I don't think they trust in him, because everything that has happened up to this point continues to repeat to that very same thing. And it's not good. It's not good at all. And as much as I hate to say it, because I don't want to say it here, but it proves that I have been 100% right in my evaluation of Hendon Hooker. It proves that the reports on Hendon Hooker have been valid. And it proves that there is a very unclear, very foggy future for Hendon Hooker going forward. But anyway, I just wanted to give my thoughts about, all the other players, but then I wanted to really, really talk about Hendon Hooker's performance and Kyle Allen's performance last night, because, before what happened with, Maurice Norris, that was the main thing that was going to get talked about. And it's still going to be one of the main things, because now you have this really, really big issue about what do the Lions do going forward with Hendon Hooker. Because the next preseason game, Kyle Allen's going to get the start. And if Kyle Allen stacks yet another good performance and Hendon Hooker struggles yet again, at that point then it'll be, that's it. It's over. That's why it's a question mark still right now, because there are still 2 more preseason games left. So there's still a little bit of time for Hendon Hooker to try and salvage this situation. Still a little bit of time for him to redeem himself. But I got to be honest, if after 2 years of, us seeing the exact same thing, the same reactions, the same, viewpoints from the Lions as far as what they've been doing, and then how Hendon Hooker has been performing on the field, I'm going to tell you this right now. His chances of being able to salvage this situation, they're very, very minuscule. And if that does wind up being the case and he loses to Kyle Allen, then's going to come, like I said, that conversation. Does he get cut? Do the Lions trade him? What do they do next? Do they try and draft another backup quarterback? Do they just stick with a veteran quarterback in camp and just move forward from that? There's a lot of open-ended questions right now that nobody has the answer to, and the reason why nobody has the answer to it is because nobody knows officially what the Lions are going to do with Hendon Hooker, and Hendon Hooker is the only one that can realistically change the narrative on that question, or give an answer to it depending upon how he plays. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to talk about this so that way it was out there. I gave my my thoughts, opinions on what happened in the game, and but I've said what I was going to say, so I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw and you enjoyed the content, I highly encourage you all to subscribe to the channel. I also want to say this. If you've subscribed in the past, or you just subscribed and you not had a chance to do so, or you forgot to do so in the past, please, by all means, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content that I push out. I hope everybody has something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.